Notice the similarities? What you just heard was the bass line from the Michael Jackson hit song Thriller, played back on a Moog MiniMoog. This is just one example of the countless hit songs from throughout the latter half of the 20th century that were made possible by Robert Moog's revolutionary MiniMoog analog synthesizer. The MiniMoog's signature sound became a staple from jazz music to industrial. It defined the genre of post-disco, as well as the sound of Kraftwerk, Gary Newman, and others. It is still in use today by artists who seek its rich bass tones and unique sound quality. Robert Moog was already establishing himself as a pioneer in avant-garde ways of making music. An early and prolific builder of large-scale modular synthesizers, some as big as an entire room, he was also the inventor of the theremin, a cult phenomenon that allowed you to play music without touching the instrument itself. The MiniMoog originated as a side project, culled from the spare parts bin in Moog's factory in Trumansburg, New York. Moog wanted to make a more portable version of the monster, nearly room-sized modular synthesizers Moog's company had been creating previously. Bill Hemsath, an engineer for Moog, describes his design of the MiniMoog taking place during lunch.
One of those men who was there alongside Bob Moog when this magnificent instrument was born was Bill Hemsath, one of Moog Music's earliest engineers. Out of spare parts lying around his attic office, Hemsath assembled the first MiniMoog prototype during his lunch breaks, the Model A.
Now I'd open my desk drawers, take an apple out of one and take a module out of the other. Now, my office was up on the second floor, and I was next to the graveyard, and that's where Bob tossed stuff that was junk, but maybe we could use it someday. There was a 5-octave keyboard, but he would steal keycaps off of the treble end for, replace chipped and broken ones. The number of remaining keycaps determined the size of the keyboard, and it turned out to be 3 octaves. So I hacksawed that down, and there was just a little bitty notch left in the left cheek. And I needed something there. Well, how about a slide pot? That'd fit. So, the forerunner of the wheel was that slide pot just to fill in the space in the left cheek. And then there was an upper console case, 4 feet long, but the end was broken out. I would take the upper console, cut it down to match, and with a little bit of fudging, it fit. I could get, how many modules was that? About a half a dozen across. I was able to find everything in the junk except for a 901A oscillator controller. I had to steal that from the stockroom and bolted them together. This was the first time in history that a keyboard was bolted to a synthesizer.
The MiniMoog is constructed out of 3 sound-generating oscillators, which can modulate different sound waves individually to create various sounds. It also has a filter, which can cut out various frequencies in order to further change the sound. The original MiniMoog went through 4 prototypes before it was released in its Model D configuration. The synthesizer was immediately picked up by forward-thinking rock, pop, and jazz acts who valued the unique overblown sound characteristics. The unique sound profile of the MiniMoog was caused by an inadvertent turning up of the overdrive function inside the synthesizer. This gave the MiniMoog the ability to create punchy, strong bass tones, unlike anything seen before in mainstream synthesizers. The MiniMoog went on to define the sound of the 70s and 80s, used by Devo, Kraftwerk, Gary Newman, and Michael Jackson to produce their signature hits. It was also used by Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, who describes the MiniMoog as essential to his creative process. My entire musical career, from the first demos of Pretty Hate Machine to the present, really the only constant has been a Moog in one form or another, Reznor said. There's never a time when there's not one of them Moogs in the room, because it's part of the vocabulary of how I arrange music. This only serves to show how versatile the MiniMoog is, despite its relative simplicity. From the early days of its use in post-disco and pop, to its repurposing for darker purposes in the industrial movement of the 90s, the MiniMoog has lived on. In 2002, Robert Moog redesigned the classic MiniMoog to have modern features like a touchpad modulation control and a small screen. Additionally, the MiniMoog Voyager was able to store 128 presets in its memory bank, allowing users to save sounds that they liked without having to recreate the patch each time. While the MiniMoog Voyager ceased production in 2015, you can still purchase the MiniMoog Voyager XL, an even more expanded version with the opportunity to plug in different patch cables to further modulate your sound for a whopping $5,500. A less cost-prohibitive option for those who want to try out the full MiniMoog experience is to use a software-emulated synthesizer or soft synth. These use digital signals to emulate the analog sound from the original synthesizers that they try to recreate. My favorite emulator for the MiniMoog is the Monarch synthesizer by Native Instruments. I think it provides the purest, richest tone that reflects most of the MiniMoog's true qualities. Here is a short song that I put together to showcase the different sounds that the MiniMoog can create. I created this song using Ableton Live in conjunction with Monarch. Every sound you hear in this small short piece of music is directly from the MiniMoog emulator. Notice the rich bass tone, crisp snare, and smooth melody. This showcases the wide variety of sounds the MiniMoog is able to produce even with only 3 oscillators and limited effects. Whether you're a fan of disco, prog rock, post-punk, metal, pop, EDM, or even classical music, you cannot deny the impact the MiniMoog has had on popular music since the mid-20th century.